It almost feels cruel to come swinging at Unbeatable with criticisms. Just one look at this game and it's immediate that it has a huge chance of hitting for me. It's a mix of frantic rhythm gameplay with vibey visual novel RPG style sequences. Its points of inspiration are clearly a bunch of stuff I love, like Fooly Cooly, Scott Pilgrim, Kingdom Hearts, Night in the Woods. There's just clearly such a distinct style and energy to this title. It really does feel remarkable sometimes. Moments in this game where it clicks so hard. And in those moments, it really did live up to the hype for me. But overall, it's something I'm a bit hesitant to say really reached its full potential. A quick rundown of what this game is for those unaware. Unbeatable's gameplay is this very stylishly presented 2-button rhythm game where you fight off monsters called the Silence, in time with the music. It's relatively simple to get the hang of, but the difficulty scales nicely according to how familiar you are with the genre. At its core, it's very similar to other existing rhythm games like Taiko no Tatsujin, or especially Muse Dash, which Unbeatable draws a strong resemblance to. The game is split between a no-frills arcade mode, where you pick a song and run through it, as well as a meaty story mode, which is what I'll spend most of this video talking about. For me, the arcade mode was pretty good, and I'll definitely be returning to it, but it's the story mode that occupied most of my attention, and where the game branches out to try and be a lot more than just another 2-button rhythm game. Not many rhythm games have a story mode, and if they do, almost certainly they're nowhere near as ambitious as Unbeatable. This is a game that builds up its own world, a cast of many characters, and is intensely focused on visual novel style sequences. All of this gets more focus in the story mode than the rhythm game segments. It's a premise of a dystopian world where, under an authoritarian regime, music is outlawed. The protagonist, Beat, teams with a young girl named Quaver and ends up forming a band to fight back against the police state. They're joined later as well by the twins, Treble and Clef. This plot is filled with cool moments. Often it's an absolute blast. But looking at the big picture, at best it's extremely messy, and at worst, it's actually kind of bad. It pains me to say that about a game which looks and sounds this good. However, what redeems Unbeatable is how overflowing with passion it is. Its ending run sort of transcends where initially the plot might seem like it's going, and ends up a very personal, heartfelt affirmation of creativity and never giving up no matter what life throws at you. I really didn't expect it to go in the direction it ended up going, and it is quite extraordinary in some ways. But this game's pacing is wonky to say the least. It's very front-loaded with world building, which is fine, but you won't really be doing much gameplay for the lengthy opening sequence. Though the most bizarre moment is an early prison interlude, which again is very low on gameplay, but high on tedium. It's obviously knowingly tedious, putting you in the mindset of characters in a repetitive prison routine, but placing this moment so early in the game after a similarly plot-focused first chapter, to me feels like a mistake. It ends with a banger set piece, but then the game launches into a sewer level. Don't we all love sewer levels? For a game that is otherwise so absurdly tapped in on cool moments and maximalist style, it's a bit start-stop for its first couple hours. Luckily, the game really does pick up after this section. However, even in its latter half where the plot comes more into focus, it's still fragmented overall. All the payoff is focused heavily on the lead character, but then the others, especially Quaver, who has just as much, if not more backstory and importance within the plot, is sidelined. There are still some cool sections throughout the game. The big money shot moments are these high-speed set pieces, which are visually exciting, but sometimes not the most intuitive from a rhythm game perspective. But in terms of pure dopamine rush, they hit really good. Also, boss battles can be challenging and visually exciting, even within the more typical rhythm chart format. These boss battles, and battles in general, are a lot of fun, and if anything, I'd like even more of them in the game. There's also a fun reoccurring baseball minigame, which is used at various points which provides some relief from the chart-based gameplay. These sections usually have some fun, catchy tracks too, which lean in on vocals and sound effects, telegraphing when to time your hits. I will be careful not to spoil the game, but the last chapter of Unbeatable is essentially a moment that manages to both make and break the game at the same time. As I alluded to earlier, the game takes a pretty hard left turn to being explicitly about something, when previously, the game was more of a chilled out, slice of life, character hangout type of experience, with intermittent musical set pieces. All focus is put onto the lead character, and the rest sink more so into the background. On one hand, the writing for this part of the game is really heartfelt and speaks to something that I think everyone can understand and relate to somewhat, but on the other hand, it leaves a lot of the game's setting, characters, and essentially most of the plot that had been built up for the rest of the game hanging on a thread. For me, it was one of those games that left me feeling oddly bittersweet after finishing it, from just how honest and life-affirming the direction it ends up exploring was. However, thinking back on the game afterwards, you might realize that so much of the plot was hand-waved away with, at best, a very vague resolution. It's also not helped by the plot darting about, passing time without making it clear, or hard-cutting from scene to scene, resulting in cases of whiplash or confusion. Undeniably, the plot of Unbeatable was frustrating. The pacing didn't sit well with me, I didn't feel like I got to know some of the characters as much as I wanted, and the world building, so heavily focused on in the early game, ends up not really mattering as much as you'd expect. There's also a feeling that the ACAB sort of attitude the game has is just aesthetic above all. The game utilizes anti-authoritarian themes to say some basic things about the value of individuality and creativity, but it doesn't really build up the villains to be threatening. They feel about as scary as Team Rocket in Pokemon. It's a bit teenage feeling to me, which is fine. I didn't mind the same sort of bratty tone employed in Night in the Woods, for example. But that game actually had things to say which tied back into the lead character's attitude towards cops. Here it's mostly just an aesthetic, like buying a $49.99 t-shirt with the Anarchy logo on it from Urban Outfitters. But still, it exudes real heartfelt moments that, even as overbearing as I initially thought it was, did end up hitting for me in its final stretch. It was really emphasized with some excellent voice acting performances too, especially Rachel Lake, who performs the lead character and even sings the songs her character performs in-game. This is a title that was in development for a long time, but maybe a bit longer would have done the game a favor too. There were a few points throughout playing story mode where the game just kind of feels like it's barely hanging together technically, with duct tape all over it. Scenes transition in clunky ways, which does not help the fact that the story itself often darts about and time skips unexpectedly, leaving me wondering if the game accidentally skipped a cutscene or something. There are minigames included that are frankly atrocious, and it's obviously a little bit self-knowing in the case of this absurdly janky pool minigame. But what about this cocktail minigame, which just isn't very well implemented at all either? It even includes an optional platforming segment. There's not even an attempt to tie in a musical element. It's just a game absolutely not built for platforming, trying it out as a joke. Even just walking around, there's your NPC buddies following, who pretty much never keep up properly, or end up merging into you as a new scene is loaded, most puzzlingly as well. Failing a song in story mode will sometimes not offer you a chance to retry, and the story just goes on, which is not a particularly satisfying way to do things, especially not if you're challenging yourself with the difficulty, or not someone who's well versed in rhythm games. But really, it's all about the vibe, and the vibe is so good. It's presented with these anime-style 2D animation for characters within 3D spaces, all filtered through a fuzzy CRT sort of aesthetic, which imparts a dreamy, nostalgic feeling over the game. This does end up being more than just an aesthetic too, as it ties into elements of the plot later. There's cool maximalist design elements, like I love how this game flashes loads of different alternate logos for the game before showing its official one. Like, how many games put that much effort into something like that? Environments look nice. I love this little seaside town wrapped in a warm sunset glow. It goes without saying the character designs and animations are very impressive. Even fully animated cutscenes are used frequently. There's also some esoteric abstract environments which reminded me of Kingdom Hearts a bit, which are really cool. It's hugely stylish, and in moments where the visuals mix with the music to create these big Sonic the Hedgehog style fast-paced set pieces, it really feels like you're playing something special. Okay, so the major redeeming factor of Unbeatable is that it probably has one of the best video game soundtracks of all time. Definitely one of the most ambitious, especially for an indie title. There's a whole album's worth of fully fleshed out pop rock tracks, which the band plays throughout story mode. Then there's a whole original score as well to accompany moments of dialogue or exploration. They truly did go all out, and of course, all the main tracks can be returned to over and over in arcade mode. You could pick up Unbeatable the album in a record shop and just presume it was a real band. While the core tracks played by the band are in the rock genre, there's also a lot of electronic leaning tracks throughout arcade mode, and even the story mode busts out some on occasion too. I really wish I could have come here and told you guys that Unbeatable was Game of the Year. There's stuff in this game that I really do love. It has its finger on the pulse of a bunch of aesthetic elements that I just adore. This is a title that's genuinely really cool and has magnificent energy, backed up by an all-timer video game soundtrack. But its story didn't really stick the landing for me. It ends up a title with a lot of cool moments, but a story that leans on a heartfelt turn at the end to overpower the fact that beyond that, it is a bit of a huge mess, exacerbated by some technical issues and unsatisfying pacing. But this is a game that's bursting at the seams with passion. It's got countless great moments, and generally it's a very stylish game that makes a strong impression. It probably could have used a lot more polish, both in its story and technical side, but it's still an experience which I found to be quite cool. While its core 2-button rhythm game formula is familiar, wrapping it up in a hugely imaginative world with a rich set of characters and a memorable visual style is very impressive still. Not to mention a soundtrack that goes well above and beyond what you would expect. It's a set of ingredients so good that I don't really mind that much that it doesn't all mix together as perfectly as I'd imagined. It's this team's first game, and I'd imagine tackling a project this ambitious and full of heart will have led to them learning a lot of lessons to make their next game even better. I'll be eagerly awaiting whatever they do next, because these guys clearly have the sauce.